So let's talk about the dancer personality. I was really interested in this. Brian, aren't you a dancer?
I like to do it for fun. I don't think people would assume that I like to dance, but I oddly enough really enjoy it, even at home when I'm by myself. Or, yeah, if I go out, I want to dance, or else I don't want to go out.
That is, and what about you, Sammy? Do you take dance?
No, I'm definitely not a dancer. I try,
Uh,
but I am not.
I can bop to the beat, and that is where it ends, folks. Because when I used to have a job in entertainment at Disneyland, I'm not kidding, and there sometimes we had to do dance routines, and I just could not memorize them. I was just awful. So they made me be like the comedic presence in those particular routines, just because I was that bad. But this was an article. I was interested because I've grown up around a lot of dancers. I have dancers, people in my personal life who are dancers, people I worked with at Disneyland who are dancers, people I've known in other capacities. And I've always thought they were a little bit different than the rest of us. And now a study's been done to show that that's exactly what is going on. And it's really interesting. This is a study led by the Max Planck Institute for Empirical Aesthetics. That's the MPIEA. And they focused on the personality traits of amateur and professional dancers. And this was published in the journal Personality and Individual Differences. They looked at over 5,000 people from Sweden, 5,000 dancers from Sweden, and over 500 in Germany. These are huge sample sizes, which really tells us a lot about these human beings. And they looked at something called the Big Five personality traits. Let's talk about the Big Five personality traits. And you can put that visual up of the castaways there on the island. The Big Five personality traits have openness. Openness is the O. It's the Big Five personality traits spells out ocean. And the first one is openness. That's intellectual curiosity, creativity, preference for novelty. The second one, C, is conscientious, tendency to be organized, dependable, and disciplined. The third one is extroversion, which is sociability, energy, and tendency to seek stimulation in the company of others. Number four is agreeableness, a compassion, cooperativeness, and friendliness. And neuroticism is emotional instability and the tendency to experience negative emotions like anxiety, anger, and depression. What do you guys think? Like, what do you guys think about that? Brian, do you have any idea of where dancers might fall in that particular breakdown?
So those five personality traits, is that like all of them? Is that what the dancers are, or they could?
No. Well, we'll go into which ones they represent of those.
Oh,
But that's just like we all have these five dimensions. It's a good question. Maybe I didn't explain it right. We all have these five dimensions within our personality, and the dimensions we can either have more of one of those traits or less of one of those traits. And our having more or less of each of the five traits kind of adds up to our major personality.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm like, I could see which ones I would be, which ones,
Which ones do you, just a guess, which one do you think dancers kind of represent? There's openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism.
I think maybe the extroversion one.
Very good. And any others?
The openness. The one that they're disciplined for sure. You have to be disciplined.
The conscientiousness.
Yeah.
The C. So you think the OCE. Sammy, do you have any ideas stick out for you?
I'm not sure. I also would think that the extroverted one, I feel like, especially if you're a professional dancer and need to audition, you need to be like out there and make people know who you are and stuff like that.
Yeah, and definitely
Perfect.
have the courage to like just put yourself out there, on display.
Perfect. I think you guys are on to something. You hold on one second. They broke down into dancer types. They looked at standard ballroom, like just standard dancing, like your regular stuff, Latin American dancing, Argentine disco, swing dancing, ballet, and street dancing. I think they were missing pole dancing there, Brian.
Way to throw me out there.
Well, do you want to let people know?
Oh, I don't mind. I really don't mind. But yeah, that's not one that people would think I would be doing. But I do find it really challenging, actually, and fun and therapeutic almost. So yeah, it's my little joy.
Well, they have whole fitness classes devoted to it. So
and competitions and everything. Like it's a whole different world.
Yeah. Well, the main results of this study, they found that dancers were less neurotic compared to non-dancers. This made sense to me. They're less anxious, depressed, etc. Although a lot of dancers I knew did have anxiety, depression, etc., it seems like dancing really helped them. So in many ways, the dancing was very therapeutic, gave them a reason, a purpose, and a way to express themselves. So in general, they have less neurosis than non-dancers. And what they do have more, and you guys will be right on here, is agreeableness, openness to new experience. Openness is like they're willing to put themselves out there, and more extroversion. In fact, their extroversion is quite high. Openness to new experience, really understandable, and agreeableness. They're willing to be told what to do, essentially. They're willing to be taught a routine and they copy it and they follow along and they work with other people. Because dancing isn't just a solo act, it's really working with one other person or a group of other people. So it seems like dancing in many ways helps us to express some of the most positive personality attributes we have. And this was similar for both professional and amateur dancers. The one that was the highest was actually openness. People felt it was dancers really are willing to put themselves into new experiences. They're willing to try new things. They're willing to experiment and go places that other people don't. These are true performers. And in fact, people who are professionals are the highest of all in openness, and non-professionals are not quite as high. So the professionals are really willing to go just practically to any lengths to express themselves, which I thought was really cool. The thing I was surprised by, I don't know about you, but the conscientiousness there was no relationship. Conscientiousness is that dependability thing. It's people who they're very dependable. They think about things, they plan, they organize. And it does seem like dancers have that skill, but it's no different than the general population. So that's something to know.
That's interesting.
So musicians, believe it or not, have agreeableness and openness as part of themselves as well, but they don't have the extroversion that dancers do. Singers have the extroversion that dancers do, and dancers in general are less neurotic than non-dancers and musicians. The dancers, it seems like that's one of the healthiest expressions you can do, which I thought was pretty cool. And thinking back on those types of dancing, are there any that stand out for you? There was one thing, I don't want to leave too much of a thing, but I'll just tell you, swing dancers were less neurotic than Latin and standard dancing. Why might that be?
I don't know. Is the music a lot more happier, right? That might be it?
It's pretty upbeat.
Yeah, like you just can't help but to dance to it. Like, yeah.
There's a principle in psychology, which is all mental fitness or mental wellness is built in mental flexibility. And it's interesting to me that swing dancing really requires a great deal of mental flexibility. It requires you to be creative and to move on the fly, and you're not necessarily always following a rigid routine, which is, but you have to be extremely, but you still follow a routine, and you still you're willing to move your body in some very loose ways. And I don't know if that's at all related, but it sure seemed to be analogous to the being less neurotic. But overall, what we learned is that dancing really does lead to positive personality traits. So if you have any doubts, if your child wants to get into dancing, I think that's a great thing to do for their mental health, as well as if your child wants to study a musical instrument or wants to sing or wants to do any of the creative arts. It's one of the very best things you can do for their mental health. So
I would say
always
also
a
for
good-
adults too, you know.
And
Sometimes I feel
adults,
like we
too.
need to act like kids as adults to really kind of enjoy life a little bit, I would say.
Ah, very good point. Yeah,
It's never too
it's
late.
good to. That's true. So I was looking for a big, a big room filled with plastic balls to dive into, but I just still haven't found that. But I'm going to go to each McDonald's till I finally find one that I'm allowed in. How about that?
You can just sign up for a dance class instead.
Good.